Santa Monica College's student-led government remains a mystery for many students. What is Associated Students? Who's a part of it? And what do they do? To answer these questions, Corsair sat down with A.S. President Joshua Elizondo and A.S. Vice President Dominic Prendergast.
So Associated Students is the student government on campus. It is a place for students to advocate and connect with each other to really find a community among students. We have resources available for clubs, for events and different things that students can engage in on campus, both physically and in the virtual world. So it's really important for our students to know that we're here for them and that we're a resource to connect them to the rest of campus. The president essentially is the face of the organization. There is a restriction a little bit on the power of the president in that I don't have the ability to vote. I don't have the ability to really do much other than sway the popular public opinion. And so I'm here really to be the spokesperson of the organization as well as keep the ship moving.
So the vice president in many ways is, I guess, the most direct support to the president. We work in tandem, we work collaboratively on many things, and the vice president is really responsible for placing students into the committees that are around campus, the academic senate committees and other committees, to make sure that the student voice is heard and represented. So ensuring that voice is as diverse as the student body is and it reflects that directly. And I also sit on committees as well myself, tasked to kind of spearhead initiatives for recruitment and for voting and other things that come along that I feel is going to empower students and make their voices heard and that kind of thing.
So we've done quite a bit this year. We've worked a lot with the partners at the organization and administration and leadership to look at some of the policies and change them. We are currently going through a constitution revision to make it sure that students know that they're all a part of us. I think this year, I've been really focused at looking at the foundation and the structure of the organization. We've also worked on this year a virtual scavenger hunt so students can learn about the resources on campus. You're seeing the merchandise. We've purchased merchandise. We purchased about 70,000 worth of merchandise so that students know we're here. It's to really engage in feeling like they belong in our community. I've been at SMC since 2017 actually, and I was involved with a lot of the guided pathways reform and AB 705 and some of the changes that had been happening across the campus. So last school year I was the student trustee for the college, and I decided to run because I was in a position where I felt like I understood a lot of the dynamics of the college and what was happening. And when it came to if I was going to run again, I was on the fence, but I ultimately knew that I had the ability to really help the Associated Students through the pandemic and hopefully coming back in person and doing some of those things. And so that was really what motivated me to run, because I had been around for several years already, and being student trustee, I had high-level connections and things that I was hoping to continue projects I had been working on. So I ran unopposed, so I did no campaigning. And that wasn't because I didn't feel like I should put time and effort. I just felt like it was a sure win that I would win, and I should already just start getting into the job and start planning out what I was going to do for the year and what I wanted to accomplish.
I knew that I wanted to get involved in some kind of leadership position within the school. I kind of had gotten to a place where, academically I was happy with where I was, but I wanted something. I was yearning for kind of a little bit more. When he was in the student trustee position, he had posted a vacancy to kind of say, if you want to get into a leadership position, I'm looking for commissioners to kind of work with me, and that's how I kind of fell into it like that.
We were having a vacancy election because the vice presidency went vacant, and that was also partially why I chose to run, because half of the roles were vacant, and I knew that someone who knew the organization needed to be at the helm.
So my initial foray into student government was acting as Josh's commissioner, and so I would kind of shadow him in meetings, and it was just you kind of get your feet wet and you sort of get an understanding of how student government works, and Josh would kind of guide me, and he was really great shepherding me through what's involved in student government. And then it got to a point where the fall, was it?
Yeah, the fall of this past year.
Yeah.
And you were either going to be my commissioner or run for a role.
Run for a role. And the vice president was open, and I had felt at that point that I was kind of comfortable kind of moving to the next stage. And I had, the Office of Student Life that oversees the student government was always very supportive, and so I knew that the support was there.
I definitely had challenges, I think, with switching from student trustee to president. They're two completely different roles. As student trustee, you are a student, but at the end of the day, you're also a trustee of the college, and you have to understand the voices of all constituents, not just students, the management, the faculty, the administration. And becoming the president, who's the voice of the students, it was definitely a shift for me, having to think, well, this is what students want, this is what I need to say. And it might look on the outward that I was changing positions, but it's because I'm just very clear the two roles are very different. And I think that was what not surprised me, but was a challenge, because there's been moments where I'm like, well, I see what they're saying, but this is what students want. And I need to be the student voice here because I'm the president. And it's definitely, I think the only thing that, if there was anything that surprised me, it would be the fact that we're still dealing with the pandemic. I was hoping to be the person that could help transition back in person, but that's going to be the next president.
And what first surprised me? I think probably the learning curve. I was quite overwhelmed learning who does what and why they do it and where things go and the process and the procedure and the policies and the rules, and because there's a lot. But I tried to exercise humility and kind of move in a way that I was letting people know that I was still learning, and if I didn't know the answer to things, that I was always encouraging people to guide me, and I would take their advice. I try to always take note of things and make sure I'm listening and learning and asking questions, and so I think that was probably the thing that surprised me the most. And then secondly to that is, I think in a way I felt Associated Students is a beautiful part of our student community, but I feel in some ways is disconnected from the student body because students aren't aware of everything that we do and who we are and our purpose and our mission and things like that. And I think that's evident in the amount of students that vote in elections. And so I think that really surprised me in a way that motivated and empowered me to want to kind of, connect those together and reconnect the student body to Associated Students. So, yeah.
I would recommend to my successors not to rock the boat too hard. Ultimately, you may want to make changes for the college as a whole and do many large-scale adoptions, but at the end of the day, some of those changes take many years, and it's a very short time in office. And I'd rather see you accomplish something than at the end of your time have nothing done.
I don't mind rocking the boat. I encourage rocking the boat, actually, but the caveat to that is that I think rock the boat, but do so in a collective and a collaborative way. Do so...
Well, intentionally.
Yeah, do so... Yeah, no, I think you want to disrupt the status quo in a way that is not for the sake of disrupting the status quo, but because you have meaningful changes that you want to make, not because you want to advance yourself or highlight your own leadership or any self-serving sort of motivations. My encouragement is that for the incoming board, whomever they might be, to understand that the position that they hold is not about them, right? And the changes that they want to make, do so in a way that encourages everyone, that includes everyone, and be able to work collaboratively and to take on board feedback and welcome advice and suggestions that you don't want to hear as equally as the ones that you do want to hear.
I hear a lot of the conversation happen between online and in person, and I think it's a lot of times they're put against each other in the conversation. And really, for me, coming into this year, I think that the online world and the virtual world and the pandemic actually showed us the cracks in student engagement versus this is what we're doing just because of the pandemic. You saw the voting counts drastically drop. I don't think that that is just because of the virtual world. It shows that the student engagement on campus and the directors asking for voting and asking for people to be in person and talking about voting was what was the driving force. And I felt like that was, while it is great that students advocate for themselves, it shouldn't be on the students to have students be the participation at the college. The college needs to also step up.
Because I joined Associated Students, as I had said, as a commissioner to Josh initially, and then as the vice president, my entire experience has been in the remote environment. So in a way, I don't know any different. I'll probably defer more to Josh to kind of speak to, the before and after, or how that transition manifested. I accept and recognize that there's difficulties of being online. You haven't met people. You don't know what many people look like. For me, at points being out of state and kind of displaced because of COVID, it's allowed me to be able to participate that if the remote environment wasn't there and we weren't in person, I wouldn't have that opportunity. So there's always silver linings to it, but there's also drawbacks.
The voting counts, they were lower because of the virtual world, but at the same time, it showed us what the actual vote would have been if students weren't able to advocate for themselves. And I think that the college needs to take a larger step on promoting student engagement and student elections in particular, which is why this year a lot of what I've done has also been looking at how do we reshape the organization to make it so students know that all of you are a part of us, whether or not you pay the A.S. fee. Re-envisioning what student life looks like, and that organization is kind of shaped to better assist students in participating. Because it is unacceptable that I was elected by 300 some students when there's a population of 30,000 here.
Easily for me, that's the easiest question to answer. It's the people. It's working with Josh, it's working with Dr. Rodriguez Lupercio, working with our advisors, of course our board of directors, working with students, being on committees, being able to intimately interact with faculty and administrators and like I said, other students. So it's definitely the people, the connections that you make, that's what you miss. And I think feeling as though I'm a part of something that's much larger than myself, hopefully leave the school a better place than when I arrived, repay the debt of gratitude that I have to the school for offering me, a lifeline and an opportunity at a time when I needed it to return to my studies.
I think the best part for me has really just been getting to know students, just being able to work with people closely, similar to what Dom was saying, getting to meet the faculty, the management, the students, and really feeling like I belong in part of a community. That's been the best part.